Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Droid Live Show episode 68 tonight. I'm your host, Kellen. With me, Ron and Tim. Changing up the order there. Everybody say hi real quick.
Hey guys, how's it going? Tim here, filling in for Cal.
Hey, this is Ron filling in for Eric.
Yeah, rest in peace, Eric. I mean, he's not dead, but he's just
Definitely
no longer with us.
I mean, he is dead, but
He's dead to me.
rough start.
rough. Huge show, though. By the way, jumping right out of there. It's been a crazy week and a half, 2 weeks. So obviously, Motorola's unveiled, announced everything in their portfolio for the rest of the year. Well, mostly until we get new droids. But we got a new Moto X, 360 is official. We got a new Moto G, some accessories, things like that. Tim was at Samsung's event also last week, so we got new Galaxy Note 4, the Galaxy Note Edge, the Gear VR, and then obviously yesterday Apple went off and announced 2 new iPhones, their watch, and all sorts of stuff. So we've got a bunch of things to talk about. So IFA was last week as well, so we got new Sony phones. T-Mobile had some Un-carrier announcements for today. Hangouts got a big update on Android. You can actually make calls in it. It's actually merging with Google Voice slowly. NVIDIA confirmed basically through legal documents that they are indeed partnering with HTC to make the Nexus 9. So lots of stuff. So let's try to get through as quickly as we can, but as thoroughly as we can. So let's start first with Moto talk. So Moto X, got one here somewhere. So Moto X is official, and not a lot of surprises with the Moto X, but it's back as the Moto X again. It's not like Moto X 2014 or Moto X Plus One or anything weird like that. It's just Moto X. You could call it Moto X second gen if you want to, but it's got 5.2-inch 1080p display, 13. No, what was the camera again? 13 megapixel? I already forgot. Yeah, I think it's 13. With this sort of ring flash on it. It's got IR sensors on the front to help with active display, which has now been renamed to Moto Display. Motorola basically said that they had heard, or from focus groups and stuff like that, that people want to buy phones that are bigger than their last phone. So that's kind of why they upped the display size and all that stuff and went 1080p. But they're keeping like the unique materials on the backside. So you've got wood, and then you've also got leather now, which is really nice, by the way. The device is going to be available by the end of this month, at least on AT&T and Verizon. They both also will have Moto Maker, so that's back. Sprint's probably going to have it. T-Mobile may, although there's an unlocked version you'll be able to buy that will work on T-Mobile. But AT&T, Verizon, the only ones with Moto Maker. $99 on contract or $499 off contract. So Motorola basically, the way they were selling it to us is we created this high-end flagship that matches up to everybody else, except we're selling it for about $100 cheaper than what everyone else is. So, yeah, I've had one in hand for almost a week. Tomorrow it'll be a week. It's a pretty nice phone. I mean, it's a lot like last year's Moto X, just a little bit bigger. I'll have lots of thoughts on this later, but it's actually a little bit thinner than last year's, but it still kind of has that curvy back. The dimple's back, except it's huge. It's not a button, by the way. That's not a button. It's not a power button. It's nothing. I thought it would be a button, but it's not. It's not a sensor or anything. But the phone in hand, it feels like a little bit like the Moto X, just a little bit bigger. I mean, you definitely notice. It's kind of Nexus 5-ish territory, which isn't necessarily bad. Overall, though, this leather is something I wish everyone could get their hands on. Like when you set it on a table, it's soft. Like there's no noise. Like I don't know if you guys notice when you set your phone down on something, it kind of it makes like a loud plasticky on. But this one, I don't know. There's just something about the leather. This display's pretty nice. The camera takes some good shots and good light, but just about any camera does. We'll have to test that some more. I think that's kind of the only question. And then battery life so far for me hasn't been spectacular by any means. Last year's Moto X wasn't spectacular either. This one's just decent. Like the other day, I was searching for a charger at like 5 o'clock. There's only been one day that's happened. The other days, it was like 9 o'clock. I was looking for one, so I was getting 14 to 16 hour range, which isn't phenomenal. It's not terrible, I guess. So I don't know. I like it. I wish the battery life was better. I think the camera is acceptable. If that's something we're striving for, I think it's acceptable compared to last year's. Yeah, what do you guys have for thoughts or questions or anything? You guys, I mean, there wasn't an event. We could have talked about this. There wasn't an event. I'll talk about this real quick. So Motorola, what they do, they've done this for 2 years now. Basically, host press, show them what they've got, teach them about the product, tell them about the product, try to sell them on how awesome certain things are. Then they give us like an embargo time where we can finally talk about everything that they've told us. And that was at 1 a.m. Central on last Thursday or last Friday morning, Thursday night, whatever. So anyways, yeah, it's not like we all got to experience it together like we did when Tim was at Samsung's event. So anyways, thoughts?
I think it looks pretty cool. I still haven't got my hands on it yet, but the only real design thing that I'm not really feeling is kind of the LED ring around the camera so much. The thing that looks like a button that isn't a button.
Right.
And also the speaker on the front and bottom. I mean, it's cool that there is a speaker there, and I'm guessing it's chambered, or at least, something to where it, sounds good. There's maybe some bass tone coming from it, but at the same time, it doesn't look very aesthetically pleasing, say, as the front-facing speakers on an HTC One MA or M7 would look. I mean, it doesn't really look like a speaker grill, or like something nice. It just kind of looks like a slit in the bottom, and to me, it's not the most attractive thing. It could definitely be worse, don't get me wrong, and I'm really excited to get my hands on it because I love Motorola's take on Android, pretty stock, but with some proprietary tweaks. I love that. But at the same time, I guess I just had hoped for something better in terms of design-wise. And that's kind of the best way I could put it.
Yeah. It is metal now, by the way. I didn't mention that. Metal frame? Leather?
Yeah, I mean, it feels a bit better, right, in hand? Yeah, so...
I mean, they use premium materials. I mean, there's obviously some plastics in there, but like this one is leather, and then it has a metal frame, which is kind of interesting. One thing I didn't mention... Did both of you ever use much of the Nexus 4? Tim, you probably did quite a bit.
Yeah.
So it used to have, like, on the edge of the display, it had this, like, sort of cascading roundness to it, so it was really soft to the touch. This phone has the same thing. This is the first phone I've seen that I think since then that's done that. So it's, like, really soft to the touch. But anyways. Ron, what did you think about the new Moto X?
I agree with Tim about the aesthetics of it, especially the new dimple. I think just looks terrible. I think that would have looked really sick if it was just a little indentation, like especially in the leather.
Yeah.
If it was like, kind of indented in there, that would have looked really, really nice and classy. Versus having that on there, it looks like one of those terrible iPhone cases that have like a hole in the back for the Apple logo. That's what it reminds me of, and I always hate the look of those. So I don't care for that. I don't think the speaker grills up front look nice. I think it would have been, since they have the plastic front, I think it would have been a lot classier to do something like what HTC did with the E8 or the cheap model of the One. I think that would have looked better. So it's kind of a weird thing where they used better materials, but then the design went downhill. Besides that, like they use better materials, but it doesn't look good. And so
yeah,
that's kind of disappointing about it. It looks like they've made some improvements to the software. So like with what is it called? They changed names everything. So
yeah, it's Moto Voice, Moto Display, Moto
Display,
Moto Actions now.
Yeah, so Moto Display looks like it's improved in some ways, where it's showing you a little bit more of what's going on, which is good. So and I gotta say, I love the YouTube ad campaign that they did, where you've got like the overhead view of all 4 of the new products, and just different videos. I thought the videos were great. I thought they did a really, really good job with that. That made me interested in all 4 of the products. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely wouldn't. I don't think I would recommend this over the M8 at this point. Just it didn't. I don't think it has anything that's really, really standoutish. So, yeah, it's a decent upgrade, but aesthetically, I think it looks worse than the old one. And there's not a lot of big major improvements, which we talked about last week. Is there going to be anything that's going to make it stand out from the crowd? And I don't think there is.
It seems like Motorola is hoping that maybe price is helping, but I don't necessarily know if that matters all that much. I mean, like I said, I've had it for about a week. I will say that, you know, phones I would choose at this point, it's between this and the G3. I do like this phone better than the M8 just because the M8's so damn slippery, and that just drove me nuts, and it's way too tall. But uh, it seems like a really good phone. I've really enjoyed using it, especially getting back to active display. I'm probably gonna call it that forever because that's just one of the best software add-ons a company's ever done. I also like the simple things they've done, like the IR sensors. So I mean, if your phone is sitting down, yeah, and you just like wave your hand, you could be. I should actually measure this to see how high it goes, but you can wave your hand like at least a foot or two over it, and they'll pick up that movement, and your display will come on. So you don't even really have to be really close to it for it to come on, which is kind of nice.
That's a really, like, if you got used to using, like for me using the Moto X, I got used to kind of just tapping it a little bit to make it wiggle so that the display would kick on. So having that where I can just wave my hand over it, that is actually pretty nice.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little detail, but that's kind of all that's left now is getting those little details right. And they got a lot of them wrong, design stuff, but the software stuff is still good.
Yeah, so Motorola's really worked on doing those kind of like last year where they tried to build on those little add-on experiences that really make the phone just that much better than, or at least they hope's better than everyone else's. And then they also threw in like a current gen processor, like it's got a Snapdragon 801 like everyone else. Yeah, so I mean like it's a really good phone, and I just like it because it's not giant. Like I went with the G3 for a long time, and I still like the G3, but then once you go back to a phone that's just a little bit smaller, I'm back on loving small phones again. So I don't know, like obviously reviews coming eventually. So far though, I mean it seems like a good phone. Just the battery life is I think the thing that's really scaring me. It's not that great. And you know, like the G3 lasts a full day easily, and this phone is, you know, 14 to 16 hours, which is not awesome.
Yeah, so they increased the size of the display, but they didn't really increase the battery that much, did they?
No, they went from 22 to 2300 milliamp
Yeah,
hours.
so that's probably where they're losing a lot of that battery, I would guess.
Yeah, and then they also didn't put an SD card slot, so that annoyed some people, especially because everyone else this year is putting in SD card slots. Like everyone, Samsung, HTC, and LG all put an SD card slot. Motorola didn't, and they're still selling a 16 gig model, which is kind of baffling. Like the Moto G is a similar phone, but it has an SD card slot and like a removable back if that matters to you. But I don't know, it's a good phone. I mean, Motorola did another nice job with it. I don't know that this is like the same kind of game-changing phone that we sort of felt around the original Moto X. It's a nice, you know, bump, and they've done some cool things with it. It's tough to say if like this is the phone that everyone should go buy. There's just too many good phones, and I don't know that it necessarily like stands out above all the rest.
No,
So
yeah, well, and that's the disappointing thing is seeing like what's the little headpiece called?
the Hint.
Okay, wow, okay, not
Yeah.
really memorable.
Wow.
No, it's not at all.
But it is like, I thought that was a pretty interesting product. Wasn't expecting them to do that. The 360 looks good. It's just, but it looks. I just feel like they put a lot of energy and effort into the 360, and I feel like the X kind of got the leftovers, you know, in terms of like how they were looking at designing it. I was not a big fan of the Moto X design-wise myself. It's okay. It's not great, but this was just a big step down aesthetically, I think.
I think if you guys got this one in hand, you might appreciate like the design just a little bit more. Like it's tough to show in pictures and on video and stuff, but like even when you just kind of look at the leather in certain light, you just kind of go, "That's really cool." Like you can see all the, you know, the definition in the leather. I will agree though that the Moto thing that's
what kills it.
That's just not good.
If it was leather all the way around there, like even if you hated the ring around the camera, if it was leather all the way across, I think a lot of people would forgive it. But because it's not, because they have that stupid piece of plastic in there, like put the logo in there, that's great. But like if you have it, like make it classy, like have it indented in there.
Well, and what they, you know, so like you can't really see this, but see the AT&T logo, like you can have the phone branded when it's leather like this. You could put a little message on there like you could with the original. If they had taken the leather and like branded in the Moto logo or something, like that would have been just a really cool design detail. I don't know why they did this. I don't know what's under there, what the reason was, because that's
well, it's probably just so they can make them all the same, and then you just put the different backing on top of those shells every single time, which is, I mean, in terms of, you know, having to pump out a bunch of those, I get, but it's that kind of attention to detail and that kind of design that makes people care about your product more.
Yeah. So, and if you so this is the black version with the black front, which makes the frame sort of a dark metal gray, and then this thing dark gray. If you get a white front, you get a light aluminum frame, and then this is a light button. So that's kind of the differences. So you can't like customize the actual color of the button, but you can customize the ring that goes around it in Moto Maker. So yeah, 4 leathers. There's like 25 total different colors or combinations you can change or something on the back. So Moto Maker's back. Oh, Moto Maker, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned this, but they basically opened a plant in China, so they could up capacity. So I mean, obviously we knew the Texas plant was going away, but they did.
We didn't see that coming. I mean, that's profiteering 101 right there, folks.
Right. So they did open, in China, and they still are planning to get phones to people in under a week, is what they told us. They said at least around 6 days, and they're hoping even faster than that. So if you Moto Maker a phone, you still should have it in under a week, which is kind of crazy still if it's coming from China, but
that's pretty great.
Yeah. So Moto X, I'll have a full review up probably within the next week because I definitely want to get it out before the phone comes out. The phone's probably going to be out. I think we learned a long time ago Verizon would have it by about the 25th. I would imagine AT&T will be around the same time. So, yeah, and $4.99 off contract. It's not a crazy deal. It's not a bad deal.
It's not a crazy deal, but man, I mean, if that was last year, we would have been like, oh yeah, that's pretty sweet. I mean, considering what it is. I mean, last year's only had 720p Snapdragon whatever with X8.
And what did it started at $199? Didn't it last year? Didn't it start at $199 and
on contract.
And then they just immediately dropped it like a month later.
Yeah, and then when it was on sale like every month.
Yeah, it's still on sale, I think. Developer editions. No Verizon developer edition, which people are mad about. I'm not sure how many they sold of those, but the people that want them are vocal. There is the unlocked GSM version, which will work on like T-Mo and AT&T. That will have an unlockable bootloader, so it's kind of like their developer edition. But people have been hitting up Punit Sony on Google Plus like constantly, trying to get him to explain why no Verizon Dev Edition. And today he mentioned something. It's tough to tell if he mentioned it in response to somebody asking for one or not. But he kind of said like, "We're talking about it internally now. We might change our minds," kind of thing. So. Could happen. And welcome, Kyle, by the way. Kyle has joined us.
Thank you. Yeah.
Any thoughts on the Moto X, Kyle?
Any thoughts on the Moto X? Doesn't really appeal to me, but I think...
Because you have a G3, right? So nothing you saw makes you want to give up your G3, sell your G3 and your Moto 360 or something to buy one.
Right. Basically, I think that current Moto X owners don't really have a reason to upgrade. I think you would agree, Kellen.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, so I've been using the old Moto X for the last week to kind of get back familiar with the whole situation. And the old Moto X, now that I've used like the Galaxy S5 and the One M8 and the G3, it feels slow. The old Moto X does. It feels slow. And so it actually is a decent upgrade just because it just feels a little... Yeah, it would probably be worth it, but it's still going to last people a while. The Moto X was built to perform pretty well, so.
It's like what the GS5 was to GS4 owners. You know, kind of that in between time where everyone still is on a 2-year contract, or a lot of people are still on a 2-year contract, so it's not going to make a difference to them. But I think people who are interested in a Motorola phone with some of the features that the old Moto X had, some of the software features like touchless control. I mean, can't go wrong with this if that's what they're interested in.
Yeah, touchless control, just Moto Voice now.
Yeah, rebranded.
They rebranded everything. So they've made some upgrades there, like you can customize your launch phrase and things like that. I don't even know what it is. They've changed it like 4 times.
As far as we know, that those features are coming to the older devices. So
that's right. Yeah. So that stuff might come to the old ones anyway. So that's not really an upgrade.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right. Well, Moto X. So yeah, it'll be out by the end of the month, at least at a couple carriers. We'll review it, all that stuff. So you guys want to talk Moto 360? I think 3 of the 4 of us have a 360.
360.
So Motorola obviously last week as well made the Moto 360 official with pricing $249, which is what we expected. And that Best Buy listing we spotted a few weeks ago that went up live early was the real deal. Everything in it was legit. So we've got a 1.56-inch round LCD display, 512 megabytes of RAM, 4 gig internal storage, a TI OMAP 3 processor, a 320 milliamp hour battery, wireless charging, IP67 water and dust resistance, and 2 colors: black, all black with a black leather band, or silver with a gray suede leather band, which is apparently like a special launch edition. And metal bands coming later this fall, I believe they keep saying. So metal bands will be $80 a piece, or if you buy the watch with a metal band attached, it'll be $299. And they went on sale immediately Friday at like noon or something like that, somewhere around there, 11 a.m. It sold out immediately.
And they sold out.
Yeah, sold out. So yeah, Google Play, Best Buy.com, Motorola.com, and then some Best Buy stores got them in kind of over the weekends here and there. And yeah, they sold out instantly, and they haven't been restocked, and we don't have no idea how many they made, how many they sold, anything. It sort of feels like they sold like a couple grand. I mean, maybe it was more than that. I guess they had to produce at least, 4,500 for all the Google I/O attendees. So the other couple thousand, they just sold out instantly. And so you can't get one right now. But
yeah, considering each Best Buy had only 2 units, I'm guessing they sold out pretty darn quickly. Well, of whatever they made.
Yeah, and they're already back ordered for a couple of weeks. Like if you didn't get one instantly when they went on sale, now the shipping delays are at least a couple of weeks, I think. So like Google Play, they keep kind of going in and out of stock, 2 to 3 week shipping time frame. I don't know what Motorola's site is anymore, and Best Buy, who knows what's going on there. So you guys both have them, Kyle and Tim. Well, Kyle, you just got yours, so you get to go. We'll let you go first then, Kyle. What's your initial impression? You've had it for what, like 6 hours or something?
Yeah, something like that. I know everyone says this, literally everyone, but it's a lot smaller in person. I was concerned about the size, but it really, and I have a small wrist. I have a pretty small wrist. I think mine is only like 6.5 inches in diameter, so I was concerned about how it would look, but it looks perfectly fine. You know, people with tiny wrists, you really don't have to worry. You know, don't just rely on the images and videos for comparison's sake. Other than that, I mean, I have to say it is a little sluggish compared to the Gear Live, obviously because of the processor and GPU that's inside it. But something, and this may have just been something the software update did, but I have to say that it is a little responsive when it comes to voice commands. I noticed that it recognizes my voice commands a lot better. It's faster at recognizing my voice commands. Something else I noticed is the wake gesture. You know, that gesture that you use to wake up the watch by twisting your wrist is, I mean, it works a lot better. And that could just be the placebo effect. I'm not sure.
No, I would agree with you. It does, yeah.
Yeah. Finally, I like the heart rate monitor a lot better on this one. The Gear Live heart rate monitor absolutely sucked. It was garbage. It only took your heart rate once. It didn't monitor it continuously. And plus it was inaccurate a lot of the time, and also it didn't read a lot of the time. This one seems pretty consistent. Not sure how accurate it is, but at least it's showing a number fairly often, and you know, continuing to monitor after I pull it up. And of course, I mean, hardware-wise, the display is awesome. There's really something to be said for circular displays, and no amount of pictures or videos can, you know, convey how cool it looks. And I mean, the depth that everyone talks about is real. It's nice how, you know, the glass is slightly raised over the screen. I haven't seen that on any other device I've used.
It's chamfered.
So, Yeah, I mean chamfered as well. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with it, as you can probably tell. I'll have to put it through its paces, but so far I like it a lot.
Yeah, Tim. So Tim was fortunate enough to get these silver. I mean, Kyle bought the black because he wanted the black one.
I got the last one in the state of Oregon from Best Buy on Saturday morning. Oh, I had like the most terrible experience with those people. I usually love Best Buy. Like I've never had a real problem with them until their people started saying, "Yeah, we'll hold this for you." So I drive 40 minutes from my house to go get it, and then they say, "Oh, we just sold it 5 minutes ago. You could go catch them if you want." But I was so pissed. Either way, I got the watch. I got the gray leather with the silver kind of metallic body, if you will. Absolutely love it. I mean, I've spent time with it at Google I/O, and I've seen all the pictures. I've watched all the videos. I've been like waiting for this watch. Ron knows. Everyone knows. And so I'm really happy to have it. And you know, I can honestly say. The one thing that really stands out is definitely the circular display, the build quality. To me, the watch is built really well. It feels premium. If I wanted to wear a watch, you know, I want it to look good. All watches that I've owned before this do the same thing. They all tell time, but I want them to look good. So none of the smartwatches I had before, like the Gear Live or the Neptune Pine, you know, None of them really had that aesthetic that I was really looking to carry on my wrist.
Wait. The Neptune Pine doesn't have the aesthetic you want?
No.
What hope is there for a good-looking smartwatch then?
No, it looks like my local sheriff department gave it to me to like make sure they can keep an eye on me.
Yeah, you wear that on your ankle.
But yeah. Well, that's pretty much where it would fit.
Low jack.
It's so ridiculous. Yeah, thank you, Neptune, for hooking it up, but you'll be getting it back soon. So as I was saying, you know, this is the first one that looks like a real classic timepiece, and you know, I will say that the battery life to me so far doesn't overly impress me. I definitely get, you know, a solid day. I can go from morning to night, not a problem. But then again, you know, I'm at home all day on Wi-Fi, and I haven't been able to really get out there too much in the real world to test it out, but over the course of a week or so, whenever we get around to doing the full review, I mean, there's really not much to review. It's Android Wear. It's pretty stock, bare bones, basic. The only thing you could really review is the hardware itself. So the battery, you know, you'll get a day, just like Apple Watch. You know, you'll get a solid day. So other than that, what? Huh?
Well, you'll get a day if you don't turn on ambient mode.
Yes. So right out of the box, I decided not to use ambient mode. I tried it for about 2 seconds, and I was like, well, you know, I actually don't need my display on 24/7. Plus, if I can save some battery life, that'd be great. So I decided to turn off ambient mode completely right as I got it. So other than that, I mean, I wish I could say more about it. You know, I've showed most of my friends, call me a loser, that's fine, but most of my friends, they work for Apple Retail. And so every time that one of them saw it, they were like, wow, you know, that actually looks better in person than it does in pictures. It almost looks like the watch faces are photoshopped. You know, they were like, that actually looks really good. Mm-hmm. And, you know, and after tomorrow with the Apple Watch, I could tell that some of them were possibly just a tad bit jealous that Moto kind of upped Apple, at least in our group of circle, you know, in terms of design. You know, and Apple has always been so huge on design, and seeing their little baby square watch yesterday, it's sort of like I think it hurt. So.
Yeah, they're jelly. We'll get to the Apple Watch later.
I know it's hard not to talk about both though. Sorry.
No, I know it is. Yeah, so ambient mode, for those not familiar, it's basically like these guys said, with the screen on, and then it kind of goes dim, and then it sits on for quite a while, and it will eventually turn all the way off, but it takes a really long time. And so if you get a notification, that'll just kind of kill it. And you can run your phone or your watch's battery down, and I think I killed it like 12 or 13 hours, fully 100% dead. And with ambient mode off, it lasts, you know, up to 20 hours or so. And as Kyle mentioned earlier, and Tim, you kind of just mentioned as well, if you don't need your watch on all the time, you don't need that ambient mode. And then, like Kyle said, Motorola did a really nice job at the whole wrist gesture of turning the screen on. like a really good job. And so every time you need to look at it, like it fires up and turns on. So you don't need the watch on all the time unless you just want it to look like you're wearing a real traditional watch or something. But yeah, I really like it so far. And I've tried to force myself. Well, at first I was trying to force myself to like use Hangouts with it all the time and like voice dictate and stuff like that. But now I've just found like when I'm at home and like my wife's upstairs or something and she sends me a message. I know it sounds weird. We like message each other within our house. Like I won't pull out my phone. I'll just like look at my watch and send her a message right back or something like that. And so I found at first I thought I wasn't going to use it that much when I was just at home because I sit here all day like a troll. But now I found like I use it all the time to just send like a quick message back to someone, and I don't actually have to pull my phone out of my like sweat pocket or something. So.
I hate when my wife texts me from the other room. It drives me bonkers.
Yeah.
Well, you want her to yell and be all crazy and stuff?
About 9 times out of 10, it's, hey, can you take the dog out? So, yeah.
Well, so like we have a 10-month-old, and so if he's like sleeping, like, and she's like with him or something, it doesn't work. Like it's easier for her to just send me like a silent message. So yeah, I've actually found some extra uses out of it and stuff like that. But and it just it looks really nice. Although my wife did say that looks goofy the first time I showed it to her. I was like, yeah, it's a new watch. I know it's all black and I kind of want the silver one, but it's still cool, right? And she goes, that's kind of goofy looking. And I was like, that's so fun, cool. Then.
You still love me, right? I'm gonna wear this and you're not gonna run away, right?
And I was like, doesn't it look better than all the other ones, though? And she was like, whatever. So, anyway.
Yeah, Moto the wife test.
Yeah, I do. That's one of my favorite things, the wife test. So, Ron, now that this thing's official, are you coming back to Android just so you can buy a Moto 360?
This is what I was waiting for, it turns out.
Well,
this was the moment.
This is
but
it.
isn't Wear technically coming to iOS devices sometime in the future? Wasn't that
That I do not know of. I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think they've announced that, have they?
No.
I have not heard any plans like that. I would know.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, it's just an app.
Yeah.
It's so much more, though, Kyle. It's an experience.
Gosh.
Once you go Wear, you never go back.
I think it's definitely still the best looking smartwatch available, period, including the Apple Watch. I think it's still definitely the best looking, but I still think it suffers from the limitations of Android Wear still. So
it's just so new and fresh. There are limitations.
Yeah. So while I think it looks the best out of all of them that are out there, I'm not telling anybody to buy one yet. So.
Well, they can't.
Well.
No, we have no idea.
Well, apparently there's still some in Fullerton. Somebody emailed me. We're very excited.
So last night I was because I've been looking and waiting for these stupid silver ones to come back in, right? Even though I have like 18 on order, and I noticed one that was up in Washington, and so I tweeted it from the Droid Life account that this Washington Best Buy has one, and everyone then first I got a couple of responses that said my store in like Arizona has one and mine does too, and then everyone else decided to tell me that Best Buy systems are just terrible and that doesn't actually mean they have anything, and Tim and I found that out again today because he thought there was one at his store close by, and he called, and they were like, no, we have nothing. So Best Buy has no idea what's going on with the 360. It's kind of a disaster.
Best Buy shatters dreams.
They do. They do. The odd thing is that I was in Chicago during the whole launch, and not one Best Buy in all of Chicago had any in inventory. Motorola is located in downtown Chicago. And Tim was like, yeah, all the Oregon stores have them, while I was still not in town, so yeah.
Yeah, but I should have known that they only had like one or two. So
well, yeah.
I just figured Motorola would have been smart, and just had like thousands of these things ready to go. Like you make us wait months and months, and then you keep like
pre-announce it.
Yeah,
well, obviously
I'm not down.
It's like they've been waiting, right? Because they had them go on sale like the day they announced it, basically. So clearly they were ready, and they've been ready, and then they just maybe they were being overly cautious and only made so many because they were scared that no one was going to buy it. Although that's just so dumb because once they showed this thing and every other Android Wear watch came out, everyone said, I'm not buying those other ones, I'm waiting for the 360. So
they've had tons of evidence from people. Just watch the I/O thing. Like, everybody got super bummed when they found out they couldn't get the 360.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Everybody, like, that's been press reactions, and I get them being a little hesitant because, like, the press really loved the Moto X, but it didn't sell well.
Right.
So I get them being a little hesitant, but seeing, like, oh, like, all the developers really want this one. Like, it's not just press, like, it's regular people saying that's the best looking one to get.
Yeah.
I would think you'd ramp up production a little bit more.
Yeah, so hopefully they will now, finally. Because, I mean, yeah, it's like a 2 to 3 week delay on the silver one. The black one, it sounds like it's shipping slightly earlier and stuff like that, but
yeah.
All right, sweet. Random other Moto things. Ron, you mentioned it, the Motorola Hint, which is their little earbud thing. That was kind of a secret star, at least in terms of like the media reaction. Everyone thought that was really cool. It's not a Bluetooth headset. Like, I don't think you can make calls on it, as far as I know. You just put it in your ear, and you can use your Moto X launch phrase, and then like have it read you back voicemails and texts, and then you can tell it commands, and it'll give you like turn-by-turn direction in your ear. Like, it's kind of cool, but the battery life on it also is like 3 hours. And then they give you this little charger that comes with it that holds like 2 more full charges. So it dies, you put it in this little case with you, and it charges, and then you can put it back in and do that 2 more times, and then you could charge the whole case up at the end of the night or whatever. But
that's terrible.
Yeah, and it's like $150.
That sounds like way too much of a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Yeah, and do you want that thing in your ear? I mean, they use some nice finishes. Yeah, there's like some leather and some wood finishes on it and stuff. It looks like a cool little thing, and people seem to be kind of excited about it. Even some of our readers said like they're more excited about the 360 and the Hint than they were the Moto X or the Moto G or anything like that. So,
I mean, something like the Hint would be pretty cool, like if you're going like on a bike ride.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't need it to last all day. And if that's your expectation, like, you're taking it out for certain, like if you live in New York and you're walking around, like, you don't want to have your phone out. Like, there are instances where that would make sense, but at $150, I don't know that.
I think it's $150. I should know that. I think it's supposed to, and it's obviously not out yet. It's coming later this fall, and they didn't even have review units of those, so they're clearly still working on it.
I know it's more than 100.
It's 150, yeah, $149.99.
Yeah, that's pricey for that.
It's pretty pricey.
It's sort of like Google Glass without the display.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just having trouble wrapping my head around it. But,
yeah, I mean, I don't think, as far as I know, I don't think it does calls. It might. Maybe they just didn't talk about that because that was just a given. But I couldn't find anything, and even when I was listening to their like spiel about it, that it makes calls. It's just there to like talk to and have it talk back to you. $150, 3-hour charge. Yeah. Anyways, we can move on from Moto unless you guys have other Moto things. So the Moto G we didn't talk about, but $179. No LTE though. They made a bigger display, threw in an 8-megapixel camera. Didn't really change much. It's just bigger. Has an SD card slot, which the Moto X doesn't. So yeah. All right, Tim. Is Tim gone?
Yeah.
Still alive.
He's gone.
He is gone. We were just going to him for Galaxy Note 4 talk, and we can't move on to Apple talk without Tim.
Well, let's talk about Note 4. What does everybody think about the Edge?
Oh yes, the Edge. Well, see, I want Tim's like I want to hear what they said, like how they were selling the Edge to Tim. So, all right, we'll hopefully wait for Tim to come back. Galaxy Note 4 is official. Oh, he is back now. Hey, Tim.
Hey. Oh, sorry, the stupid camera thing.
Oh, okay. We want to talk about Galaxy Note 4 if you're ready.
Oh, dude, so ready.
Let's hear all the Note 4 things.
All right, well, luckily there's actually not too much to talk about. The Galaxy Note 4 was released last week, or not released, but announced. It comes with 5.7-inch QHD display, 3 gigs of RAM, Snapdragon 805 here in the U.S., So it'll be on all the carriers, just as Samsung has been doing. They crank those out, and so far no release date, exact release date, no pricing. I'm guessing $199 on contract, $299 on contract. Usually the new Note devices, carriers find a way to squeeze $300 out of people. We shall see. They got the new
Phil Schiller is a really good deal.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you get the 128 gig variant or whatever it is. $2,000 off contract. So there's a new S Pen. Okay, instead of talking specs, I got to play with the phone for about 20 minutes, 25 minutes. The display absolutely blew me away. I was hanging out with Marquez Brownlee, MKBHD, as you guys know. He absolutely loves displays, and all he was talking about the whole time was the display. It's QHD Super AMOLED, so it's the first Super AMOLED display, which is QHD 2560 by 1440. The thing is legit. Like, it looks fantastic. The performance was awesome. Again, this is after a short time. There's like no apps installed. There's one widget on the home screen. It's really hard to take away any type of real-world use experience from it, but it looked really great. In terms of the hardware, sorry,
did you get a chance to compare it to the G3? I'm sure it looks, incredible. But
it's got to look way better than the G3, right?
It absolutely does. The G3 looks a bit kind of uncolorful or non-colorful, I guess you should say, as if kind of it's gonna. I want to say that the G3, the colors aren't as kind of saturated.
Yeah.
So on the Super AMOLED, everything is just very bright. The greens are super green, blues are super blue. And we'll see pretty soon, I think, once the reviews start coming out and the device is actually available, you'll be able to see some real comparisons of the G3 versus the Note 4 in terms of the QHD stuff. And you'll probably be blown away. I took a macro of the Note 4. I posted it on Twitter, although Twitter compresses images beyond the point of usability. So I'll share that within here. But the macro, I mean, even with the macro, you still got to zoom in to see pixels. And it's ridiculous. So I was really impressed.
Metal body, right?
Yep, this has a metal body around the edges, so instead of the plastic or the faux metallic feel like we had with the Note 3, this is actually, it's a chamfered metal. It's quite lovely, actually, and it's super thin, so being that it is 5.7 inches like last year's, it feels a lot better in hand. It's thinner. I wouldn't say it's heavier, but it definitely feels more kind of sturdy or, premium is the word I want to say, just because it's metal, so it kind of has a cold feel. It doesn't feel. It feels good. But yeah, again, I didn't get to spend too much time with it. But from the time I did spend with it, I don't think it's going to be able to get me back to the Note Cult. I mean, I'll use it to review and whatnot. But I do like the G3. I still got to get my hands on the Moto X. And damn, dude, I gotta get my hands on one of those iPhones. But yeah.
So did Samsung have a big sales pitch for the Note 4, or is it just it has Quad HD and it's metal? What were they super excited about? Well,
to Kyle's question, they didn't mention the processor at all, actually. I mean, the press just already knew that it was going to be the 805.
Yeah.
They never talk about processors because then they have to specify between. They always have to specify between international and American markets, and it just takes too much time for them. Right. So, Samsung didn't really necessarily sell. They wanted to make the camera better. They wanted to make the display better. They were like, we've listened to our customers, and this is what the people wanted. So they gave us apparently what we wanted, which was a higher resolution display and a better camera. 16 megapixel rear facer.
With OIS?
With OIS, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, OIS.
Yeah, smart OIS, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and they put a selfie cam in, too, 3.7 megapixel.
Yep. Selfie. No group feed cam, but it does have a selfie cam. Wide angle, so.
Interesting. Big battery. Removable battery still? I would imagine, yeah.
Yeah, they haven't moved away from that. S Pen, of course. They really didn't add too much to S Pen. They have a really cool new multi-window type of feature. When you're in an app, you can swipe down from the top left of the display and swipe down, and that turns it into a little window. And you can have 16 windows running at the same time. God forbid you have 16 windows going on your phone at the same time, but if you want to, you can have it.
That's cool. So you liked it, but you're not ready to jump to it and have it be your next phone.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe I am. It's just I had to play with the pink one. I guess someone thought it would be funny if we had the pink one, so I had the pink one. Um, Maybe if I was feeling on the black or the white one, I'd be a bit more like, oh yeah, I can't wait to get that back in my hands. But since my experience was with the pink Note 4, I was sort of like, okay, I'm done. But yeah, it seemed like a cool phone. It definitely probably won't get me back into the cult of Note fanboys.
It's kind of sad.
It is quite large. It was definitely bigger than the Note 3. And because it has the home button, so it does have the bezels. I mean, the side bezel's not very bad at all, but
Yeah.
it's got a home button. Like, I'm over home buttons,
I just want to see that display. I'm sure it's amazing. 'Cause every time I boot up,
sick.
so the Galaxy S5, like I'm just not a fan of the phone in general, but the display, you cannot deny how beautiful that thing is. So like every time I fire it up, I'm just like, oh, that display. So yeah, I can't wait to see the Galaxy Note 4's display. I think it's gonna be great.
QHD is ridiculous.
Yeah. All right, so talk about this Note Edge thing. The Note Edge didn't pop up until like the morning of. It started kind of leaking out, and so no one had any idea that this thing was coming. So what is the Galaxy Note Edge?
The Note Edge is Yoom, which is what Samsung actually showed off at CES last year, not this past year, but the last year. And it's basically their curved edge displays. So what it is you already have your 5.7-inch Galaxy Note 4. It's essentially because it is a QHD display, so it is 5.7-inch QHD. Then they add on like an extra. I forget the exact dimension, but I think I remember the resolution. It was like 320 by 2 something. It was something weird, and just like an added strip along the right side. It would be this side to you guys.
It's an extra 160 pixels. That's what it is, I think.
Yeah. Trying to explain like why I didn't like it so much. So when you hold it, if you're right-handed,
ridiculously terrible idea that makes no sense. That's why you didn't like it.
Yeah, it's kind of terrible. So when you have it in your hands, it's curved right here, so it's really actually quite difficult to hold and completely unusable if you use your right thumb.
Right.
So what they did is they just took the shortcuts away from down here. You can throw them in here. You can have a Twitter feed, stock feed. You can switch up the look of it. It was really. I mean, I don't want to say it was totally stupid. I just keep trying to tell everyone it's just a hey, look what we did. We did it first type of product, and congratulations to Samsung on being able to do that. I won't buy it. But
I would agree with you for a second, except like every single carrier already committed to carrying this stupid phone. Like, what? Like when they did that taco phone, the Galaxy Round, like no one picked up the Galaxy Round. That was definitely their like, look, we made a curved display and we did it the wrong way. This thing, like, they actually talked carriers into selling this stupid thing.
Well, it's Samsung, they have the power to probably, they can label whatever they want.
That just speaks to their market.
It does.
And their market share. But anyway, I was going to say, I mean, like, you can't honestly believe people want this thing. It's the evolution of the continuum in a way. And I don't, as far as I know, that wasn't a blockbuster.
This thing, when they showed this off, and I didn't know what to say. I was kind of speechless. Like, no one needs a phone that has a slightly mini slanted display on the side, just so they can get notifications there. So can it light up on its own, just this little thing? So
yeah,
like,
so
it could be kind of like an active display almost, maybe.
Yeah, you can use it as an alarm clock if you put it on its back and have that side facing towards you. That was the one feature they actually marketed while we were there, was that it could be used as an alarm clock. So that's good.
But like you said, so it was incredibly awkward to hold in hand. Like there was no...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no getting around it. Well, I'm right-handed, so I had to have the side with the edge on my right side, and so you have to use it in your left hand to really kind of navigate the settings which are in there. You swipe down, swipe up. I mean...
So weird.
Yeah, I was interviewed by a Korean news outlet. I don't know which one because I would love to watch this interview, but they they were like, so what do you think of the Note 4? I was like, oh yeah, Note 4. It's gonna do great. The Note, if Note 3, Note 2 are any indication, I think the Note 4 is just gonna continue to keeping on. And then they were like, so what do you think about the Note Edge? Is this like a new chapter? Like, is this going to be successful in America? And I said, oh, absolutely not. This thing is not going to sell at all. And yeah, I would love to watch that interview. If someone finds me on an Asian news outlet site giving an interview next to Dave Cover, who was also there with me. Shout out to Dave. I would love to see that. Please link me.
Yeah. This thing, I do not understand this thing at all. And I know Samsung's running all over the place right now, because Apple unveiled a 5.5-inch phone and going, see, we told you 4 years ago, big phones are awesome. And I get that. They're in 4 years from now, they're not going to be running around telling everyone that the Galaxy Note Edge was awesome. And no one else is going to adapt a slanted display for notifications.
There's no way.
No way. Ron,
yeah, it just didn't feel good
Edge?
in hand.
No, and you guys have said it all. It looks ridiculous. You can't hold it. The difficult thing about this is that, Tim, like you mentioned, they showed it off 2 years ago at CES.
Yeah.
They showed off their foldable screen, whatever they were calling it at the time, and said, we're messing with this. We don't really have a use case for it yet, but it's something we're working on. Just wanted to throw it out there, like we do everything. We throw it out way too early. This time it wasn't an actual product. 2 years go by, and they still don't have a use case for it. They've said, oh, we can put some slightly different stuff on here, just like we did in 2010 with the Continuum, but that's about all we've got. It's like, yeah, because it's not a good idea. It turns out, time doesn't fix your bad ideas. That's not how that works. It's not how ideas work. If you have a bad idea, time doesn't fix it. It just means it's still a bad idea later. I don't know why that's so difficult to understand. I don't know why this would be appealing to anybody. The only thing I can think of is if maybe if it was on the bottom of the display, that way you could still hold it, then maybe you would have, but, that's the only thing it's just not, that kind of technology maybe makes sense for a device. It's not this one, though.
No.
I don't know what that device is. And we've seen it with the new, I don't know, curved glass kind of makes sense. We've seen that with some of the new Samsung watches, whatever the name for their 17th one this year.
For wearables, yeah, it kind of makes sense because you can get a curve that kind of
goes along with the wrist shape.
Your curved wrist.
Yeah, assuming you make multiple models, because it turns out people have different wrist sizes, which most manufacturers haven't been able to figure out. But that's one application that definitely makes sense. But outside, having this weird edge on the side, just I don't get. I get that it's coming from Samsung. That part makes sense. Oh yeah, Samsung came up with a crazy idea and doesn't really have a use case for it. Huh? Crazy. So the fact that they got Carrie's to sign on it just shows how much power Samsung still wields.
It really does.
Despite the press saying talking gloom and doom about Samsung and saying they're not going to be able to sell units soon. There's a lot of bad press about them with that. It still shows they carry a lot of weight still with those carriers, which is good for them, I guess. But
this thing is just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Good for Samsung for still having that kind of power to just be like, no, you're gonna sell this. Okay. Sure.
Yeah. Maybe it was a bet. Maybe they're like, no. Listen. We know we don't have anything good to put on here. Let's see how many carriers we can get to pick it up. That's kind of impressive. And
I'm sure you're gonna walk in. They might not even sell this in stores. Actually, this could be an online only thing. If you walked into a store and you were looking at the Galaxy Note 4 and then this Edge thing, they're actually going to try to probably sell you on using this stupid Edge thing. They're going to confuse people, and some sucker is going to buy the Edge phone. I'm just going to feel really, really bad for him.
Yeah, don't. Yeah. If that hasn't been made clear so far, don't buy this phone. We need to send Samsung a message. Stop. This is not a good idea. Please stop.
Please stop.
That's you know what? That kind of technology is great if you had a giant game board, and you want to have your cards on the side there.
Right.
There's a digital thing like
that don't involve a tablet even. But like you said, for something special, a special case, like gaming, where you could use a little something on the side. Not a phone.
What are the chances there's going to be specialty cases that you stick on the back of it and it extends it so you can actually hold it with that side?
Well, I mean, like things like this are a company goes, I need a screen that has this slightly, curved edge because I have a special use case. Please make this for me, Samsung, and then they do it, and they make like 1,000 units. You don't sell it in carrier stores to the world. No, you don't.
No. Yeah.
They're going to. They're going to try. All right.
I just want to say that Samsung did release an SDK for developers to use.
Which I'm sure developers
want
to.
Yeah, that's the general Hail Mary, which is the same thing that Google did with Android Wear. Oh, we're not sure what the special use case is for this, but maybe developers will have something.
Come on, Ron. You can't relate those two whatsoever.
Yes, please. It's the same move. It's the same move of, it shows stuff. Maybe somebody can figure out what somebody will want to see besides an alarm, because that's all we've got. And a news ticker, because there aren't already like a billion widgets for you to show you your news on your screen. Like,
that's crap.
It's not. They clearly don't know what to do with it. They don't know, that's what, if you're going to have a weird product like that, you have a special use case that you advertise and say, hey, we know this isn't the norm, but it's a special use case for something like X. They don't have anything.
I'm only referring to your Android Wear comment. I could care less about the Note 4 Edge.
I will die on that hill.
Burn.
Same thing.
Oh, wow. Okay, good to know. You will burn.
You will burn. All right. Well, we're almost to Apple. Tim, so the other thing was the Gear VR. You said you didn't want to deal with it because there was like an 80-minute wait just to put a sweaty Gear VR press sweat thing.
Yeah, so they had 2 units for everybody, which was hundreds of people. And so that was lovely. And if you saw some of the people that were rocking the Gear VR that were in line before me, you would have said, "Oh, hell no." So I got out of there.
People, that's gross.
Yeah, so I got out of there. I wasn't even able to take pictures. They literally had 2 units, not one to touch or anything. So, and from what I heard, the demo was pretty weak sauce. So, and if the game that was announced for it being Temple Run was what they were showing off, then I'm glad I didn't get to try it out.
Yeah, I mean, Google did it with a piece of cardboard and gave it to everyone at I/O for free.
Yeah, except this one's hands-free. Well, with the Google one, you have to do some rubber band duct tape magic.
Yeah, you just put a head.
But this one, you can. Yeah, I hear it feels great. It fits your head well. But yeah. Oh, and the big thing about the Gear VR is that it's only compatible with the Note 4, not compatible with the S5, Note 3, or any other. Not even the Note Edge, because that would look weird because it's got the extra little display. But so only the Note 4. So if you have the money to blow on contract or not on contract for the Note 4, then you can buy the Gear VR for however much it was. I think it was $299, $199. It had some ridiculous price tag.
I don't know. You said the VR. I don't know if it has a price tag yet, does it?
I thought it had a price, but
I'm just looking at our write-up, and it says pricing availability unknown. Except for this year, select carriers. I think AT&T said they're going to carry it.
I thought I saw a price. I could totally be mistaken, but I promise it's going to be probably $199 or $299.
Yeah, probably.
It's ridiculous. So that's all I have to say about the Gear VR. We can talk Apple, man. I'm ready to go. It's all right. We started the show late. I feel bad. We can get right to it.
Speaking of the Note and Apple, as we get in there, Samsung is spamming out commercials right now called "It Doesn't Take a Genius." And it's Apple genius people looking at the Note 4 going, "This is awesome." All right, I won't watch
That's so
it.
Awesome.
Yeah. That's what just popped into my inbox right now. Samsung,
Apple geniuses, those people are great. They're all just fantastic people. I love them. Shout out to all my genies.
Shout out. All right, let's talk this Apple stuff. So Apple. There was so much. Apple did a lot yesterday. It went on for 3 hours or something. So Apple didn't waste any time. They actually didn't go through their 30-minute garbage slide reel of bloated, inflated stats that they make up and try to put down Android and things like that. They just were like, "Hey, welcome. Let's talk iPhone." And it was crazy. They just went right into iPhone 6 and iPhone 6 Plus, which are their 4.7-inch and 5.5-inch phones, and talked about that for a little while. It seemed like they just kind of whipped through that. It was kind of weird. We can get into lots of thoughts in a second. But so they went through that. Then they moved on to, what is it, One More Thing? Is that what it was? One More Thing, yes.
Yeah.
And
the
which
first
was
time they've used
bigger.
that since Steve passed.
Bigger
And the
than
first time
bigger.
they've mentioned Steve at all since he passed.
and that's right. They did mention Steve, and they did one more thing up. And yes, they came up with bigger than bigger. But so then they did the watch, and so it's called the Apple Watch, and Apple enthusiasts are like, "Oh my God, it's not the iWatch! Death of the eye! Rest in peace, eye!" And so
Apple Watch.
yeah, so oh, look at that. And
Gear 2 for anyone who doesn't know.
but they announced things like Apple Pay, which is their NFC payment system, and they seriously announced quite a bit of stuff. What do you guys want to talk about?
Those are the three big ones, though. Apple Pay, iPhone 6, Apple Watch.
Yeah. So you guys want to start with the phones first, potentially? So Apple finally gave in and made bigger phones because that's what everyone wants. It's actually really funny. So I was sitting, not to go back to Motorola, but Motorola said, our focus groups all said that everyone's next phone, they said they're going to buy a bigger phone. So it sounds like, Tim, they told you guys that. Like they said, like, Galaxy, no, we need to make a bigger, better display. And Apple obviously heard the same thing, and so they went 4.7 and 5.5. Yeah, so the 4.7 inch is 750p, can you call it that? It's not 1080p. But the 5.5 inch is a 1080p display. They're both next-gen A8 64-bit processors. They also have co-processors. They're going 16, 64, and 128 gigabyte models, so the 32 gigabyte model's gone. Which, by the way, is like...
How does that even make sense?
Well, it's like the ultimate marketing trick, right? Because you walk into a store and you go, $199 for this 16 gig, or they jump you all the way up to 64 gig for just $100 more, and you go, okay. And like everyone's gonna do that.
Well, I don't think it's a marketing thing. Like, one, if you were intending on getting the 32, like your storage just got doubled. I think it's a margins thing. Like, for that base model that they're going to sell a ton of, they're going to have huge margins still having it at 16 instead of 32. I guarantee you that, like, with Tim Cook at the helm, I guarantee you that's why they did it.
Well,
Not
good
for
for them.
But I mean, I think it works both ways. Like, obviously, they will make just way more money, right? But they've always done the margin. I mean, they were for 32 gig, they were charging an extra $100 for an extra 16 gig. So I mean, you know, Apple was doing it for.
Now it's a little bit nice. You pay $100, you get a big jump.
You get a big jump, yeah. And then they went up to 128 gig for the first time. So, 8 megapixel camera again in both, though the 5.5 inch has OIS, which is a first. And they did some special pixely focus things. Focus pixels, I think is what they were called. Focus pixels. Let's see. VoLTE, or if you're Phil Schiller, that's VoLTE. Wi-Fi calling. NFC. No wireless charging, anything like that. Touch ID is obviously there. And yeah, what else? By the way, someone mentioned this, or Tim, I think you mentioned this. The iPhone 6 Plus 128 gigabyte is $499 on contract. On contract. You can buy a brand new Moto X for that price and not be on $499 on contract. What is the full retail? I haven't even seen, but it's got to be like $1,200.
I don't think they release.
Well,
that is crazy. Well, yeah, because the 16 gig iPhone 6 is probably $649, right?
yeah, $650 off contract. So yeah, you're looking at $1,100.
That is crazy.
It's the world's most expensive phone, dude. Well, after the ones that are like made of pure gold and all that stuff.
It's a lot of storage though. Like, that's laptop storage.
That's a lot of storage. I don't know why you would need a 128 gig phone, but some people might.
I mean, laptop store. Every laptop comes with like 500 gigs now.
Yeah, sure. If you're getting a crappy spinning disk.
You know what's great?
Yeah, if you buy
I
like
got Google Drive, man.
Yeah, but
I
your
don't
whole
need that
computer
much
goes
storage.
slower with a spinning disk, dude.
You don't know.
Okay, did I not predict that reaction?
Oh, I didn't go like that.
All right, so the design of this phone, it's all rounded, like all the billions of leaks showed. It does have a protruding camera lens, which is kind of odd.
Yeah, it looks like a metallic iPod Touch from 2 years ago.
It does, really. It does.
That's exactly what it looks like. It's got the protruding camera, everything, you know, and it's metallic. That's what it is. Just bigger.
I'm trying to find off-contract pricing.
Contract free. I got Well, this one's $749.
It's just so much money for a phone.
Oh, so that's the 16 gig model. 64 gig off contract, $849. 128 gigs off contract, $950.
Which one?
The 128 gig iPhone 6 Plus.
Wow. So just under $1,000.
Just under $1,000. And don't worry, if you order anything over $50, you get free shipping. So
Well, that's nice.
you don't have to worry about that.
The OIS intended to be definitely day one buy.
So, what do you guys want to talk
That's
about
too
then? What they
much.
did, like NFC, like so we can talk about Apple Pay. Like Apple Pay, I thought was actually a big deal because this means Apple convinced and worked with all these credit card people, and they claim they worked with all these retailers, but all these retailers already had NFC payment systems. They just now are going to use their system, but like they're going to make NFC payments mainstream, which should at some point make them mainstream for all of our Android devices. And there actually probably will be a future fairly shortly where we all do actually pay for everything without credit cards anymore, which I think is actually kind of cool. And
I just want to say that I think the iPhone 6 is not the iPhone we wanted, but the iPhone we needed. Only for the fact that it does have NFC, and thank God it has NFC, because finally mobile payment services can really start going. And to me, that's so important. Like, I wanted Google Wallet to take off. I don't want ISIS in particular to take off, or whatever the heck they're calling it now. SoftBank, SoftCard.
oh, that's dead. Yeah, that's like completely dead. They announced something yesterday. They were like, we're going to work with Apple, and it's like, you're not already? Like, you're done, ISIS.
Yeah. So I just I want mobile payments to be a real thing, and unfortunately Apple or Google and Android couldn't get it going themselves. So hopefully Apple can really be, the push behind mobile payments, and it could just become, the norm.
Well, and that's the kind of thing that, like, Google Wallet launched with like the same year as the Nexus S, right?
Yeah.
Like we're talking 2010,
It was a while ago, yeah.
2011, something like that.
That was the first NFC chip, right? Wasn't that?
Yeah. Like, so they've been trying to do this for a very, very long time, and I mean, we've seen some places adopt it, right? But I mean, nowhere near what you need to make that your regular form of payment, right?
Right.
Like, I think that's one thing that I think they really knocked out of the park, like having it integrated with Passbook, something they've had for a while, having the security stuff in there, having the one-time use card, so if somebody hacks Target again, you don't have to worry about replacing your card. That's huge. Like, that's giant. Having it integrated with all sorts of things, like they just, it's kind of nice seeing how they've had a few of those pieces ready to go in place, and then now it's all put together, so they're just kind of used to things like Touch ID and Passbook and all that. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's great, and hopefully we'll see more places pick it up now that Apple's doing it. It should be the opposite, right? Like maybe not in the U.S. because the numbers are a little bit more evened out. I think Apple might have a slight edge, but certainly worldwide, Android users far outnumber iOS users. So it should have been the other way around, but and in some places it is, right? So like I know in China and in Japan, they definitely use mobile payments. Like a lot of phones have done that, and that's used a lot more out there, but we just really haven't seen it out here.
Yeah, well, it's going to be mainstream now, which is something I think I wrote it up a year or two ago that if Apple finally does NFC, this is the best thing for Android. So hopefully it's finally happening. And Kyle, you wrote up today, didn't you, about the Visa whatever token thing they're doing, and it probably will come to Android or other platforms, right, next year.
But as far as I'm aware, I mean, I could be wrong on this, but doesn't Google Wallet already do something similar? I mean, you're using a virtual credit card when you use Google Wallet, and I believe they just rely on MasterCard's technology to randomize the payment information, and you're not actually handing over your credit card number necessarily.
Yeah, I guess I don't know that.
Yeah, but that's MasterCard.
I'd assumed so, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah. So
no one wants MasterCard.
yeah, well, so yeah, Visa and MasterCard both have technologies like this, so you could say that this technology is already available on Android potentially.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it's great for security, and people are concerned about, how Google will handle their payment information. So
if I walk up to once the iPhone's out and they go live with Apple Pay, is Apple Pay going live like right away, or is it not? until like December or something. Did they say? I mean, like if I go buy a new iPhone, can I go pay for stuff right away?
I assumed it was live, but
Okay. So then what's going to happen if I try to use my Android phone at that terminal? Like, is it going to go? Like, is there something that different that Apple has set up with all these retailers, or is it still just going to work because it's still an NFC payment terminal?
It's on the back end.
Yeah, I assumed it was all the same because that way they can use the existing infrastructure.
So basically, we're just thanking Apple for convincing more retailers to put these things in, and then we can already just use Google Wallet anyway.
Honestly,
Well, and more specifically, getting users that on average tend to spend more money.
Yeah.
That is that's the only reason that any retailer should, maybe would have held back. That's the only reason I can think of anyway.
Yeah.
So now you've got it on both major platforms where you can do this. It makes sense.
Yeah. Well, it's good news. I mean, NFC widely adopted now, probably thanks to them. And yeah.
Thanks, Apple.
of course, it has to work well. I mean, I saw a demo of Apple Pay. I think The Verge did it, and I don't know, it was kind of slow. So hopefully they have that tuned by launch. But
yeah, I mean, I think just NFC payments in general are kind of janky. I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever tried to pay with Google Wallet or something. It works sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes you have to open the app, and it's confusing to the person selling you things, and yeah.
Because they've never seen it before.
It's
What the
not
heck is
normal.
this?
Yeah.
Witchcraft.
Yeah, they kind of go, what are you doing with your phone? I just know that I try to use it in cabs a lot, so I don't have to get my wallet out because I probably already have my phone out while I'm sitting in a cab if we're traveling or something, and most cab drivers are like, I don't know what you're doing. You just broke my car.
And they absolutely hate you for doing it.
Yeah.
They're like, you just don't have cash. Like, no one has cash anymore. Don't be mad at me that I don't have cash.
Yeah, I mean, cab drivers went from being mad that you had a credit card instead of cash. Now when you have a phone, they just want to, like, punch you in the face for using your phone. Yeah. They'd rather use a credit card.
So I guess my point is that if all these iPhone 6 users have a negative experience with Apple Pay, then I don't know. It may not quite catch on as fast as we all think. But
yeah, hopefully Apple did it right. I mean, they tend to care about experiences, so.
That was just one hands-on thing. We'll see what happens whenever it's announced
yeah,
or
like I said,
released.
hopefully they tune it
Hopefully.
in a couple weeks. So I mean.
So Tim and I are strongly considering doing like a dual review of the new iPhones. He's going to get the phablet. Like I just said phablet just because Apple's involved now. So we'll see how that goes. We're considering it strongly, though.
It's not as big as the Neptune Pi.
People have asked. For some reason, people want us to review. They asked last year, and I was just like, no, we're not doing it. So this year we might. Because there's two, so we can both do it at the same time and experience the pain together.
I think it's going to be legit. It's got the whatever it's called.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't played with an app jukebox in a while, so.
It has. I really just want it so I can play Tiny Wings.
I was gonna say.
His review portion just gonna
Tiny
be
Wings.
Tiny Wings.
Tiny Wings.
Awesome.
Tiny Wings for days.
Yeah.
Oh, for
Can't
days.
wait to download like 16 calendar apps.
Yeah, you'll be able to. It'll be nice.
I know.
You'll be able to
I'm
experience
gonna spend like a
more.
week just finding the best calendar app. It's gonna be
Oh, that's funny.
Fantastic.
kind of focus pixels.
The MOBA they demoed. What was
The
it
camera.
called?
Yeah.
Game Glory or something. Anybody remember that game they demoed just to show off the?
All I know
graphics?
is the guy with the scarf.
The
He's like
scarf.
famous now.
Oh,
He's so
dude.
famous.
The Scarf has its own Twitter account. Yeah, his name is Scarf, dude. I'm serious.
I just saw
Yeah.
Tim's tweet earlier of the picture, and it was like, comes
Yeah.
in gold, gray, or space gray, and silver, and it's like the guy in his scarf. Like, yeah, it's so funny. God, our chat, our live blog just blew up with people going, is this guy real?
Not a real person.
Yeah.
All right, yeah.
Parallax.
So yeah,
That's
Tim
what
and I will probably take some sort of looks at the iPhones at some point. Yeah. All right,
I'd
you
love to.
guys want to talk about this iWatch? The Apple Watch. Sorry, I'm going to call it that forever because that's what everyone's
It
been
is the
referring
Apple
to it
Watch,
as for like 3 years now.
Tim Cook accidentally called it that in an interview.
Did he really?
Really?
Yeah, so it's based on that. I'm guessing that was the internal name for a while, and then I changed it up.
They decided that it's time to rebrand a little bit.
I don't like Apple Watch.
I don't either.
I liked iWatch more.
It's
Yeah.
At least I could relate it to Apple.
But
don't you think?
the eye stuff is a
You have the
little.
watch, you know.
There's probably already some janky fake smartwatch that was already called the iWatch.
Yep.
They did register the trademark. Like, people caught that.
Mm.
They had done that. So who knows?
Thank goodness.
Well, like, because that's the same that happened with Apple TV. It was originally called iTV, and then there was the channel, so they ended up changing it across the board. So who knows?
Yeah. All right, so they announced this, and it's called the Apple Watch. Comes in a regular edition, a sport edition, and a special edition. I can't remember.
It's just Apple Watch,
Oh,
Apple Watch
that's
4,
right.
Apple Watch Edition.
That's right. And the
Which is a terrible
watch, yeah, and so the edition one comes in 18 karat gold, and we have no idea how much it's going to cost, but the base model, which is the base model, the sport or just the regular watch? Do we
I
know
think
that?
it's just the regular. I think the sport.
The sport's going to be more expensive than the regular, or maybe it'll also be base.
It might be the
price.
same. Yeah, because I think the straps are what's differentiating.
Okay, so $350 starting price, so $100 more than the Moto 360.
Give me a break.
It doesn't have like a round display or anything. It has a square display that's sapphire
Yeah.
and looks kind of bubbly. It's curved, right? It's like curved sapphire.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, the display itself is square, I think, though.
Stainless steel, premium materials. Apple invented the watch dial. What are they calling the watch dial? The crystal
The
something.
crown?
The crown, yeah.
Digital crown.
The digital crown. That's what they're calling that.
Man.
So they're coming out with all sorts of different like watch bands, and they created this actually really cool system that you can slide watch bands in and out of. I can't believe that no one else in the history of watchmaking has designed something like this. Because changing a watch band, like I'm looking
It's
at
the
the
worst.
360, yeah, and I'm like, I kind of want to change the band on this, but I don't even know how to do it. And so
Oh,
Yeah,
you have to get a little tool so you can pull in. It's a pain.
it's terrible, right? But and so Apple's like, hey, let's just create this cool locking switch thing, and it looks awesome. That's really cool. So let's see. Features. I'm just cruising through their website now. So they wouldn't talk about battery. They did kept saying a day, use it throughout the day. And then I think Tim Cook maybe told Recode or something today that, or a PR
Well, it's just a
person
source,
did.
yeah.
Source. And I thought a PR person maybe did too, but they basically said like we expect you to charge it every night. So Apple, just like every other smartwatch, created one that lasts about a day because it has a full color touch display. I don't know why people thought Apple was going to create something that lasted like a week. It's just not possible with today's technology. So, so they've already obviously worked with a whole bunch of third-party developers. Like Nike has a full app. It looks like they're already building, and so that'll be a big deal. Just personal opinion, this Apple looks like they're doing with a smartwatch what we complained about with what Samsung did the first time around, where they were just like, let's make every app possible on your watch, so it does everything. And I don't know. And like the main screen with their like app collage thing, I don't know how you're ever gonna find the app you want or
It looks
tap
like a-
the app you want.
Yeah, it looks like a beehive. You know, I get it. Like the way they want you to navigate it. Yeah, it makes sense. But is that necessarily what I want on a watch? You know, to have to be able. God forbid you're left-handed. Anybody. Like, because then you have to dial in and then press or like, come on, man.
So there's a lot of weird things. There was a lot of weird things yesterday, right? So first of all, the UI looks kind of interesting, but they talked about this digital crown. Like they started by talking about the digital crown, and then they went into demos. And for the first like 20 minutes, our whole live blog was going, "Is this a touch screen or not?" Because they were talking about this digital crown. And then they go into demos, and they don't even touch the digital crown. They just started using their finger after Tim Cook had just gone like, "Don't use your finger because then you can't see what you're doing." And that's what they did. They were using two hands in their demo, and it was kind of odd. Yeah, I don't know. What are your guys' just general thoughts here on their take on a watch?
Quick thing, did anyone figure out if the Force Touch is just a long press or?
I think it's like a firmer press.
It's a firm press.
Yeah.
So you
Not a
press-
long
Just
press.
like a light tap, you actually like press hard.
That sounds like
It sounds like it's never going
There's
to
a lot of
register
room
that
for error
correctly.
there.
Yeah.
It sounds intuitive as all hell. It sounds amazing. I gotta tell you.
It doesn't
No,
make sense, but-
real quick, I just want to spout this out again. So in terms of design, I just don't like the way it looks. So I would never be interested in it. It looks like every other smartwatch that I've already seen, so I'm not interested. I like the bands, but that's the bands. Doesn't mean I can like the watch. The price is just ridiculous. $350 for what should just be an extension of my existing smartphone, because it has to be tied to it. It's not a standalone device like the Neptune Pine. You get a Neptune Pine for $350, and this is a stand. People, you put a SIM in it, and you're good to go. So no, so I just don't get having to spend $350. Maybe Ron can like elaborate on why anyone would want to spend $350 for this device. You know, it doesn't even have a camera like some of the Galaxy Gears.
Thank God it doesn't have a camera.
Tim, it should have a camera for $350. That's all I'm saying.
It has a digital
It's got a
camera.
digital camera. And I get that the materials are good. It's made by Apple, but then again, I mean, $350. That's like a new Xbox One almost. You know, like you could get a lot of stuff for $350. So I'm just not seeing it.
Ron, I'm dying to hear your thoughts because I know you mentioned yesterday. When you mentioned earlier, you were just like, you know, the Moto 360 is still better looking. I think you said maybe, but like,
Which I appreciated.
Is this something that you're considering now? I mean, you've bought into the ecosystem, or are you just going to wait until 2015 when it's available to see what you're really getting, or are you sold? Are you just completely laughing at Apple? I'm just curious.
Yeah. So when I was on vacation with my wife when the thing happened. So I wasn't watching live, which from what I've heard from most people would have been near impossible because the stream was horrible.
It was bad for a while. Yep.
So I'm just following along on a couple live blogs and keeping up on Twitter. And when I saw they're pulling out the one more thing, I'm like, okay, here we go. Let's see what this is. And first impression was, man, this thing is ugly. This does not look good. It's kind of bulbous. It's not great looking. It looks chunky. My wife tweeted. My wife never tweets. She tweeted the other day. Yesterday, she said it looks like the Apple Watch needs to lay off the apple pie.
And she never tweets, mind you.
She does not tweet. Yeah, I had to work her up on it because I thought it was funny. So it's. I like that they've got a lot of different bands on there. I think that really does sell it. I like the way that the bands work. I like that they're instead of like a normal threading in the piece of metal into the leather, it just magnetically clips on. That looks great. And that is a big way to differentiate your watch and to make it personalized. So that's huge. Like if you ever get I love having the band that I have on my current watch right now. I like it a lot more than the stock one. So that's great. I think it looks chunky. So the hardware I'm hoping will improve over time. I'm hoping they'll do some things, but it's another thing where and like I've said with Android Wear a million times, like as I was keeping up with the announcement, I was waiting for that moment when they're gonna say, here's the big feature, like this is why you want to have this, and it never came. Like there were plenty of things that differentiated it from Android Wear. And some things that were kind of neat, like sending like your heartbeat and like sending little drawings to each other. That kind of reminded me of, I think it was on the DS, or you used to be able to. There was like a picture game that you could send pictures back and forth a long time ago. So that kind of reminded me of that. Like there were some neat things with that. I actually like the look of the UI. I'm not sure how it'll be to navigate. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see what the final software looks like and all that. I thought that looked a lot more appealing than Android Wear. In some cases. Other cases, I didn't care for it. But, like Android Wear, I was waiting for a big, here's why you should get this, and it doesn't exist. It's like, it's the same thing I've been, saying for a very, very long time. Like, wearables are great if you want notifications on your wrist, but the Pebble has been able to do that for a while. So, like, if that's all there is, hey, you can get notifications somewhere else, or you can do a handful of things that you can also do on your phone. For me, that's not compelling. Maybe a lot of people will want to buy this and spend $350 on a watch. Like I don't. Like every time as I was looking at the blog and looking down at my own wrist, I was like, nope, I like how my watch looks better. Yeah. I don't need notifications on my wrist. I don't need any of these things. So I don't think it was worthy of a one more thing. I think they I don't know. Like as time has gone on, I've liked some of the watch faces that I've seen. So like the one that they have on their main website, I think that actually does look nice. And the design of it is very Braun-like, which they've done stuff like that in the past. But I don't know. I don't think it's a crazy compelling thing. I won't be buying one, and I won't really be encouraging any of my friends that like Apple products to buy one, just because I don't think it's worth $350.
Yeah, they showed it, and obviously we're an Android site, right? And our readers and stuff like that are obviously Android people, and they laugh at Apple and things like that. But there was few people that had anything positive whatsoever to say, other than when you can use it to use Apple Pay and the whole NFC payment thing. You can use the watch, which is kind of cool. And Android Wear doesn't have any sort of capability like that whatsoever, as far as I know, in any of their APIs. So, but yeah, like the design, like in a lot of their pictures show round watch faces, right? And it's a square device, and that's one of the biggest knocks against, Android Wear and early smartwatches. They're square, and then you have these round watch faces, and it just looks odd. I just felt like Apple had a lot of gimmicks. It can
look good, I think. Like the main face that they have on the front of the site of Apple.com or whatever, that I think actually looks good. But a lot of the other ones don't. That's kind of and we've seen that like with Android Wear and a lot of them, where especially when they're stretched out, and it just doesn't look good.
They were showing gimmicks like you can check the moon phases by swiping around your watch. Like that stuff's who's ever going to use that except for once as like a thing to show your friend. Like those are cheap sales tactics. Like as far as the UI goes, I wasn't a fan because you can tell they're overusing black because they're trying to conserve battery, and then they're using their sort of iOS sort of text-like buttons and stuff, and it just looks like I'm looking at this picture on one of their pages. It has a smiley face, which you can apparently manipulate smiley faces or something with your finger, but there's a cancel and accept like text at the top, and they don't look like buttons. They just look like random text like I could create in Photoshop in 2 minutes. It just looks like they were trying to hide the fact that it's a square display. They've created this like bubbly display that's black, so they're surrounding everything they're doing with black to try to hide that fact. I don't know. It seems like they're doing what we've complained about with all of the other smartwatches before Android Wear. Because Android Wear is trying to be super minimal, right? And so we're like, what are the real use cases besides notifications? And before that, it was like Samsung just throwing everything at it. Like, here's a camera, and here's all these apps, and let's do all these things, and your smartwatch should do everything. And like all the Kickstarters have tried to do, like the Neptune Pine. Like they're like, let's do it all. And Apple kind of went that route rather than just making it this really simple, elegant extension of iOS. They were like, let's do everything on our watch. And I just don't know if that was the right way to go.
Well, but I think the big contrast is like with the iPhone. Like when the iPhone came out, it did not. There were plenty of things that other smartphones could do that the iPhone could not do.
Right.
Copy paste was a big one that people piled on them about for a while, right? And rightfully so. And that was a hard thing to figure out how to do with touch. Granted, it's instead of having a little wheel, you have to try and touch on it and get that right. Like I get that, but trying to simplify this, like you'd end up with a Pebble. That's what you'd end up with, right? And so it's like it's the same problem that still exists. Like it is a small space that you cannot do much with. Like
right.
So when you simplify things, that means you can't do much on there, which means that it doesn't seem like it's worth $350. So then you get the impulse to, well, let's add on some more things that we can do. And there are some neat things. Like I've seen a handful of neat things, just like I have with Android Wear, but nothing to the point where it makes me go, I would rather wear that on my wrist every single day, charge it every single day, instead of use a watch that has a wonderful feature of telling me what time it is.
Right.
Like I don't need it to do more than that. And I guess if you want to have notifications and things like that on your wrist, then yeah, if you have an iPhone, get that or the Pebble. And if you have an Android phone, get Android Wear or the Pebble. But like outside of that, nobody has shown this is why you need this device.
Right.
That's the big problem with anybody coming out with quote unquote new product categories. Like you have to show why people need this.
Right.
Apple had that selling point with the original iPhone. They said you've got the real internet in your pocket. That's what everybody saw, and that's what everybody wanted. Versus the crappy mobile web that was on all the other smartphones, right? Like, and then you had the app revolution. Like they had use cases for this. Nobody has done this. in the smartwatch. Nobody. Google hasn't done it. Samsung hasn't done it. Apple hasn't done it. Nobody can figure out what the heck that space is supposed to be used for still. And people expecting Apple to just like come up with this.
Neptune did it, yeah.
But like people expecting Apple to like, oh, like surely Apple's gonna come up with this great thing. And I had lots of people giving me crap, assuming that I believe that Apple was gonna come up with something. I don't know. I don't know.
You've kind of been a smartwatch hater forever. I mean, you had a Pebble, and you were like, I even quit doing that. Yeah.
Yep, it's still uncharged, sitting in my drawer. Like, it's and that's what drives me crazy. Like, and people are like surprised that I don't like the Apple Watch. Like, hey, it turns out like I have my own thoughts and feelings. I don't like Apple doesn't pay me to think for them. Like, that's like I will you know, I like iOS, and I will defend my opinion of that. If other people like Android, that's great. I can understand why people would prefer Android as their daily phone. I get it. I love having my Moto X and playing around with that and using it. Like, there's plenty of things that are differentiated on those where I can get those preferences. But like, I don't like worship Apple. Like, they can make plenty of mistakes. If you ask me what I don't like about my iPhone, I will tell you there are things that I don't like. So it's just annoying seeing people thinking like, oh yeah, like either thinking that I think that, or people in general thinking surely Apple will come up with this thing. Like, nobody has come up with an idea to say this is why you should have a smartwatch, general public. There might be some specific use cases, just like there are for glass. Yeah. But in general, it's not a product that everybody needs. It's just not.
To be fair to the reasons why people have that opinion is because there are journalists and Apple fanboys and people all over that the minute Apple comes out with something, they go, oh my God, even if it's the same as something that people have been doing for years that they were trashing on yesterday. And that's the problem. And we saw that a lot yesterday with this. And that's why there's a lot of crazy opinions flying around about it. But it's Apple. What can you say? I mean, Tim knows. He talked to a bunch of people probably yesterday that were like, this thing's awesome. I want the 5.5-inch iPhone. And they probably hate the Galaxy Note series or have forever. I mean, we got emails about it today. People were like, you know, I own a Note, and at my work, well, Eric was talking about this actually last time he was on the show, but how all his coworkers give him hell all the time. Right. We have emails from people say the same thing, but then today, all their coworkers are going, man, which one should I get, the 4.7-inch or the 5.5-inch? The 5.5-inch just seems so practical. And like yesterday, they were saying the Note 3 is huge and terrible, and it's too big, and you're an idiot Android. I mean, so anyways, not to go off on one of those rants, but I mean, I think that's why people, you know, they just assume because you're an iOS user, they just go, oh, he's just gonna love it no matter what. Because there's people out there that do, they really like buy into that whole Apple thing, and that's like the thing they do, which is just mind.
Yeah, and they're just as stupid and blind as anybody that does that with Android or Windows Phone or WebOS when it was still alive. Like,
there's people that do it everywhere for sure.
Yeah, like that always happens. Like, that's I guess that's fine. There are humans that can't understand nuance and think for themselves and like have opinions. Like, but please, like, recognize that like I'm an opinionated person. I write exclusively opinion pieces. That means that I'm not a shill. Like, I will tell you what I think, and I don't care if you disagree with me. That's fine. We can have a discussion about it, right? Like Tim and I have had plenty of debates on here about different things for taste. He thought the gear looked good for some reason. I don't know why.
I said it looks better than the G Watch.
The gear look better than the Apple Watch. That's
no. I don't.
No.
They're both crappy.
They're both crappy. Yes, they are.
They just look similar. You know, it's like a little square thing on your wrist. Why is that attractive to anybody? Really? I guess maybe because I like smart or watches to look like watches with round faces, just the classic timepiece look. I mean, I just wish everyone liked what I like. Didn't like anything.
Well, but that was the other annoying. Like, I had a lot of people. Gruber went on about this a lot, especially on the talk show, talking about how like, oh, well, surely whatever Apple's wearable thing. Like, he made a big point saying like, it's not going to be, you know, I'm not going to necessarily say it's going to be a watch. It might not. I think it's going to be a wearable of some kind. And maybe it'll have a display, maybe it won't, and like, you know, all sorts of specs. Like, it was that kind of thing where it's like, what do you think they're gonna do? Like, if nobody can think of this magical feature that everybody's gonna need to have on their wrist, if nobody can think of it, what makes you think that Apple's magically gonna be able to come up with it? Like, it's.
I mean, seriously, the coolest thing to me is the fact that we're back on the payment thing, that you could walk into a store and just like tap your watch to a thing and never pull out even your phone, because then you're not even digging for your phone or a credit card.
Right.
Just tapping your wrist. Like,
that's cool. We have no idea how that's going to work, though. I mean, how are they going to?
That's true. We don't really.
The conservative mind, but.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, and I mean, they have months to fine tune and change and whatever. They showed it to us now, and it's not coming till early 2015, is all they would say. So that's 3 full months away, 3.5, and it could be March. I mean, it could be March before we see it. So
Good.
yeah, the watch bands are
Yeah.
kind of cool though. I really wish everyone else would adopt Apple's watch band system. That thing is sweet.
It's going to be a big money maker for them.
It's going to be huge. And third-party accessory makers, assuming they give them the specs on that. Like,
They're going
yeah.
to license it, of course.
So, anyone want to start a watch band company?
Hey,
Hey.
there's
So-
your idea, Calvin.
Yeah. All right. Well, there's just like 1,000 other things we could talk about, but we've been going pretty late.
Our shows are just going to have to go back to once a week because
They
a
are
lot of
now.
the stuff that is still on the list, I think we still need to talk about, so we should get back to that next week.
Yeah, we could definitely. Yeah, I think we are going back to weekly shows starting next week, so we'll try to get back to most of this. But yeah, I mean, there's other things, right? Sony had phones, Hangouts now. You can make calls in Hangouts. T-Mobile had some uncarrier things. There's an HTC event coming up. HTC Nexus 9 is now basically official because NVIDIA outed it in legal documents.
Thanks, NVIDIA.
K1, yeah. The Fire Phone is officially a terrible, massive flop. It's now 99 cents on contract. The Play Store refund window for paid apps and games is 2 hours. That's kind of a big deal. Amazon Prime Instant is now also on Android. But yeah, we can dive into more of that stuff maybe next week, and we'll have probably more to talk about. Moto X review will hopefully be done hopefully by then. Moto 360 review probably will have some stuff. So, do you guys want to wrap, or did you want to cover anything else?
We could wrap and then just be back Wednesday and talk about a lot of that stuff. I know there's going to be news next week too, so
Yeah, there's going to be more stuff every damn
it's
week.
getting
So
late. I got to eat before I might pass out.
Tim might stuff. All right, cool. Well, yeah, there was lots to talk about. We'll have plenty more. We'll have more opinions too on as all this stuff becomes available and things too. So, all right. Well, thanks for joining us, everyone. That was episode 68, DL Show. We'll be back next week, more than likely. Stay tuned for that. Peace.
Bye, Ron.
Bye, Tim.